Are the Texas Longhorns soft for canceling Arizona State?
Yards shy of the record. Williams breaks a hole. Williams, hello record book. Ricky Williams runs to the Hall of Fame. Touchback. Ricky Williams, touchdown.
Young from the shotgun. Back to throw. Vince looks. Under pressure. He'll tuck it in one. Vince to the 5. Young. Touchdown Texas. Touchdown Vince Young. He's done it again.
Longhorn Nation, we're back.
Welcome into another edition of the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast. I am your host, Matt Galatzan, joined by my co-host, Zach Dimmitt. And Zach, it's odd that this is getting so much pub and so much backlash. We talked about it the other day. Texas canceling the Arizona State matchup in 2032 and 2033. Not a big deal, in my opinion. I mean, it's a mid-tier opponent from the Power Four. The Big 12 is not the Big 10. The Big 12 is not the SEC. I would contend that it's almost not even the ACC. They're kind of on similar levels. It's not like they cancel Notre Dame, but they cancel Arizona State, and now everybody is jumping on them, saying Texas is soft because they cancel this mid-tier team that we don't know what is going to look like 7 years from now. I mean, it's honestly an absurd narrative to take on. And obviously the person who has been pushing this the most, I mean, there's plenty, like Aggie fans are pushing it, Oklahoma fans are pushing it, Texas Tech fans are pushing it. But the person with the biggest platform that is pushing this narrative is Ari Wasserman from On3. And I like Ari. I think he's a smart guy. He's an Arch Manning fan. He thinks Texas is going to be really good next year. He's really good at what he does. So this is not really necessarily a disrespect to Ari. I really like Ari. I just want to put that out there. But the fact of the matter is, Zach, he's wrong. And I'm going to play you what he said first, and then we can get into it. But he starts off by calling Texas soft, which is ridiculous. And then he goes into why he thinks this is such a big deal. But we'll play both clips here for you real quick.
The first reply, Ari, because I know you're mad about this, and I know you're going to call Texas soft for bailing on Arizona State.
Texas is soft.
Okay, so there he is calling Texas soft. Whatever, like, give me a break. I don't get it, but it is what it is. And now here's the rest of his assertion right here.
But Texas 2 years ago didn't have a big-time game.
Wrong.
And they got a crappy draw in the SEC. They still made the playoff, but they were the beneficiary of there not being other teams with a resume that was better, or they could have been left out.
Wrong.
I also think that in the context of this conversation, that the only thing that is focused on, which is, by the way, Andy, the softest of soft of this part, what happens if we lose? Why is all of the Texas fan base that believes this not considering what it does for you when you win? I don't know.
Texas should consider what it does for them when they win. Remember when they beat Alabama in 2023?
And we are only helpful. We're only a year removed from
that was a non-conference game. Then, by the way, they were in the Big 12 still.
Also, maybe one of the most iconic nights of Steve Sarkisian's entire tenure there. Oh, we shouldn't have played that. Like what our best memories.
Yeah.
Well, let's not play that.
But I want to Texas fans, Alabama fans, Nebraska fans last year, Indiana fans, because we always bash your non-conference scheduling too, because it sucks. Texas Tech fans, your non-conference scheduling sucks.
Indiana, your non-conference schedule sucks. People think that we're defending Indiana. We're not. It sucks.
Okay, so lot to take in there, Zach, and I'll get to you in a second, I promise. But here's the thing. Not only is this entire narrative ridiculous in comparing Texas to Texas Tech and Indiana and really anybody you want to talk about in terms of non-conference scheduling outside of like Alabama, who's got a ton of, in Georgia, who have a ton of Power 4 non-conference scheduled all the way out for a long time. This argument just doesn't hold water. And I'll go through it real quick. Texas played, it starts in 2019 under Tom Herman. Texas plays 2019 LSU, the best college football team of all time in their non-con. 2020, they had that game scheduled. It got canceled because of COVID. 2021, I'll give it to you. They played Arkansas. Arkansas is not a world beater. They beat the crap out of Texas that year, by the way, 40-21 in Fayetteville. Then 2022, Texas plays Alabama, loses 20-19 at DKR in a very controversial ending. We both think that they should have won that game. 2023, they go to Tuscaloosa and play Alabama and dominate the Tide, win by 10 points. 2024, they play the defending national champion Michigan Wolverines and dominate them in Ann Arbor. Last year, they play Ohio State and they take, it's 14-7. They had the ball with the chance to win the game at the end, and they couldn't get it done. Okay, that's fine. This upcoming season, they play Ohio State. The season after that, they play Michigan again. The 2 seasons after that, they play Notre Dame. Like, what are we even talking about here? Arizona State is not on the level of any of those programs, and it's not even close.
Yeah, and let me make it clear. I like Andy and Ari as well. I think they're actually two of the best, voices in college football media, or at least two very underrated guys. Apart from like all the ESPN personalities and all that stuff, I like the product that they do. But I believe Ari is like either an Arizona or an Arizona State guy. So maybe he's a little bit biased here. But will the narrative change when Texas potentially adds a big non-conference game in replace of Arizona State down the line? Because then they wouldn't be soft at all, because they'd be replacing it with a much stronger opponent. We don't know what's going to happen. That feels like it's 100 years from now, when that series would have been played. Now,
because it is.
Yeah. Arch Manning, I said it in a few episodes ago. Arch Manning could have 3 Super Bowls by then. He probably won't, but I think he'll, eventually get to that level. But that's how far away it is. He realistically could. So yeah, Arizona State is not the level of any of these other teams. So Texas could have a future plan in mind where they schedule a much stronger power conference opponent or non-conference opponent. We just don't know what that's going to look like, and we don't know what either of those teams will look like at that time. Arizona State obviously had a great season, not this past year, but the year before, when they, of course, played Texas in the CFP, and that might just be the peak of what that program becomes. We just don't know. The whole narrative that Texas is soft doesn't make sense, because we were talking about this before the show. He said 2 years ago that Texas didn't play anyone in the non-con. Now, I don't know if he means 2 seasons ago, talking about from 2026 2 years ago, which would have been Michigan, or 2025 2 years ago, which would have been Alabama. Either way, he's wrong. So I think he just probably forgot who Texas had played there, because it's simply, the argument is not there to be had. Now, I have previously said that you don't want to stoop down to Notre Dame's level. And it's not that Notre Dame has necessarily canceled any major series, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember off the top of my head. But people have said that Notre Dame is soft for having the CFP ruling in their favor for next season, skipping out on the bowl game against BYU. And I've said don't stoop down to Notre Dame's level. And Texas hasn't canceled the Notre Dame series yet. Now, if Ari was saying that Texas is soft for canceling that one, you have a better argument there. Just because it's Notre Dame. It's not, but Arizona State's not Notre Dame. So we don't know what kind of plans in place for the future for Texas, because if they all of a sudden schedule, who's maybe an Indiana could be a powerhouse for years to come. And if Texas schedules Indiana in the non-con for 2023 or 2032 or whatever, are we going to say they're soft then? No, we're not. So Ari, that's a long time from now, but maybe he'll forget what he said 7 years or 6 years from now. But the soft conversation won't be there to be had. So I like Ari and Andy. I think they're great, but this is kind of he's making some enemies with some Texas fans now, and maybe that's what he wants. But yeah, I disagree with him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the hot take machine is something that drives off-season engagement when it comes to football. We all need it. We all crave it in these points in times. But it's just a ridiculous assertion. And based on what he said, kind of going back on it in my head, it sounds like he's talking about 2024 with Michigan, because then he goes on to say that they got a crappy SEC draw and all of these things. And like, that's not Texas's fault either. Like, the SEC is the one that made the SEC schedule, not Texas. They played Oklahoma, they played Georgia, they played Florida, they played Texas A&M, they played Georgia again in the SEC championship game. Like, they played then, and then they went on to the playoff and they played Clemson and they played Arizona State and they played Ohio State. Like, there's nothing soft about that schedule. Was it an easier draw than some of these other teams had that year, like Oklahoma, for example? Yeah, absolutely. Oklahoma had one of the hardest schedules in the country the last 2 years with the draw that they got. And now going into 2026, Texas has one of the hardest schedules in the country. And I think that people kind of forget what Texas is going to have to navigate during that schedule. They play Ohio State in week 2. They have to go to Tennessee, which we'll talk about in a minute, in week 4. Then they play Oklahoma after a bye week. Then they play Florida. Then they play Ole Miss. Then they have to travel to Missouri after a Mississippi State matchup that they should win. Then they have to go to Death Valley and play LSU. Then they have Arkansas. And then they have to go to College Station and play Texas A&M. Like, that's a brutal, brutal schedule. And we're not even talking about that, Zach. We're talking about 2032, 2033, which Arch Manning is the starting quarterback for the Texas Longhorns right now. He will be in the NFL at that time. Dia Bell, the true freshman who is going to be 4th string probably going into this season, will probably be in the NFL when that game is played. So we're getting way ahead of our skis here. This is way too much hate to be being tossed Texas's way at this point in time. I can't stand it, but I get it. Off-season discourse, it drives engagement. That's probably what they're doing. It's fine. I respect them. I think they're awesome as well. I see them all the time at like the big Texas games. Like, they were at Texas, Georgia last year, and I sat next to them in the press box, and they were great. Love those guys. But this particular take is just not my favorite from that duo, and it's fine. They can do whatever they want. We'll see what happens when Texas kind of fills out their non-con schedule over the next few years, because there's other teams that they could possibly, get into non-cons with. Oregon, USC are some interesting ones to me. Maybe they bring back a Texas Tech matchup. I don't know. Like, that one wouldn't make as much sense to me, just because, like, you don't really need that one. But regardless, there's plenty of time to get that filled out, and Texas is not soft for canceling a game 7 years away. So let's get away from that. But let's move on, because there's also some other big football news, Zach, that is more pertinent to the immediate future of the Texas Longhorns. And that has to do with the Tennessee Volunteers, actually. Joey Aguilar, who was an amazing quarterback for Tennessee last season, and just like Trinidad Chambliss a couple of weeks ago, and Diego Pavia last year, he filed for an injunction to get a 6th year of eligibility to play for the Volunteers again next season. And right before the show, this wasn't even on our show sheet that we discussed this morning, but right before the show, that injunction was denied. So, and I don't know if there's any other avenues he could possibly take to get, to file another appeal or another injunction or something. But as it stands right now, Tennessee will not have Joey Aguilar next season when Texas heads to Neyland Stadium in Knoxville for their SEC opener. And that is huge for the Longhorns. There's no two ways about it.
Absolutely. And when it comes to these, legal battles, when it comes to eligibility, we're not really quite sure if this is for sure the end. I mean, I don't know. These Joey Aguilar may try to find a different lawyer or something to make this process continue, because we still have the entire offseason. It's not like this is happening in August or July or anything like that. So maybe this isn't the end, but it's certainly a major development, because he could just, if he got denied this time, he might just get denied however many other times he keeps trying to appeal. So
I actually have an update now. This was just tweeted by Pete Thamel a few minutes ago, so we can kind of integrate this into this conversation. I'm glad I looked. He says Tennessee QB Joey Aguilar's injunction for another year of eligibility has been denied by a local judge, which makes it even crazier that because that's how Trinidad Chambliss was able to get his injunction, was because he used a guy that was frankly an Ole Miss guy, and it worked out for him. Yeah. But Tamil says he'll turn pro and attend the NFL Combine next week. So there's nothing else that's going to happen. He is officially leaving Knoxville.
Wow. Okay, so yeah, that obviously changes things. I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, well, George McIntyre then, he's probably going to be Tennessee's starting quarterback, I would guess, right? Unless I'm just completely missing someone. This guy was a 4-star out of high school at Brentwood Academy. That's a good program there. Number 2 quarterback in the state of Tennessee for the 2025 class. It's at home for his SEC opener, or at least Texas's SEC opener. It is Tennessee's as well. But he's only going to have 3 games under his belt. Furman at Georgia Tech, which is actually a very tough matchup, and then Kennesaw State. So we may not really know what George McIntyre is just after 3 non-conference games. And so he's going to have a big test on his hands against what I believe will be a really strong Texas defense next year. And Texas's SEC opener just got a whole lot easier. That's for sure. Because unless Tennessee is completely able to fix all of the defensive issues that they had this past season in one offseason, which it's hard to think that they'll be a completely elite unit. It's going to be tough for the Vols, even at home. But at the same time, that is a really tough place to play. So Arch Manning is going to have his hands full on offense with all that noise. But man, that is a really big development. As Joey Aguilar, he had a nice season this past year. I know Tennessee didn't have the year that they wanted. Like I said, it was mostly due to the what was a poor defense a lot of the time. He is super experienced, and so when you don't have a guy like that at quarterback, that's obviously going to make things pretty difficult for you, especially against a team that could be the preseason number 1. So yeah, George McIntyre, we'll see what he's able to do. But he's still going to be young, and it may take him, throughout the season to really develop and show what he can do. The SEC opener may not be the stage where he is at his peak, which bodes well for Texas potentially. So very interesting. This has all happened within, past hour or less. Yeah. So, interesting to see that. If you're Texas, you don't mind it. But doesn't guarantee a win whatsoever, because Tennessee is still a great program, and they're going to be wanting to bounce back in a major way next season after missing out on the CFP.
Yeah, and shout out to CB, our first live commenter. I knew I could count on you, CB, the best honorary producer in the history of Austin sports radio. Zach will get to know him well, and CB says Ari Wasserman is looking for clicks. Arizona State is a meh program historically, outside of a few good seasons every decade plus. Totally agree, CB. We appreciate you joining us. Maybe you can loop some of the other old Open Gym listeners into to joining the live stream as well. But yes, so George McIntyre is probably your favorite to be the starter immediately for Tennessee. I looked up a way too early depth chart projection from Vols 24/7. Who had Joey Aguilar listed as the starter, but it had George McIntyre, the redshirt freshman, listed as the number 2 QB and the number 3 QB as Faison Brandon, the 5-star true freshman. That is, I believe he was ranked the number 3 quarterback in the country, number 1 player in North Carolina, the number 3 player overall in the country. So he's an elite player. Really, really, really good. I watched him at Elite 11 last year when I was out there with Brooks Austin, and he was really good. He did not win the MVP award. Diabell won the MVP award, but he was right up there. And it would kind of make sense if both of these players were in a competition now to see who ends up winning the job. I don't think they're just going to hand it right over to George McIntyre. So you kind of look at what they did in their high school careers. George McIntyre threw for over 8,000 yards, 61 touchdowns, 19 picks. Not as much of a dual threat, whereas Faison Brandon had 7,500 yards, 90 touchdowns through the air, 10 interceptions. He also had 24 rushing touchdowns, 1,500 yards rushing in his career at Grimsley in Greensboro, North Carolina. And according to Andrew Ivins, he's projected to be a first-round pick. He reminds them of Geno Smith, which is an interesting comp. He's an athletic quarterback with the arm and character to eventually be a catalyst for multiple college football playoff runs. Whereas George McIntyre does not have a comp from 24/7, but they list him as a high upside prospect with a franchise-worthy frame, college-level arm, and fluid pocket movements. So, and he's a little bit bigger. He's 6'6", roughly about 200 pounds. Faison Brandon is about 6'3.5", 6'4", and about 200 pounds. So a little bit taller, not as athletic for McIntyre, a little bit more athletic, a little beefier, and a little. I'd probably more NFL tools for Faison Brandon. Either way, it's going to be interesting because you're going to be playing an inexperienced quarterback in Knoxville, which, you know, when it comes down to these SEC matchups, Zach, and I think that both of us have kind of figured this out over the last few years. When it's close in terms of talent, typically the best thing to do when you're making a pick for a game is pick the best quarterback.
Yep.
And Texas is certainly going to have the advantage in that area.
Yeah, for sure. And that was one of the games on the schedule that, if entering the season before all the Aguilar stuff, or entering the offseason at least, you know, you kind of looked at as a potential loss for Texas. I mean, if Aguilar would be playing, which he won't be, there would have been a real chance that Texas could be 2-2 heading into Red River. Which is crazy to think. And then if, you know, we'll see what Oklahoma is able to do this upcoming season. I think that Texas will still have the advantage there, but it's a rivalry game. Never know what could happen. Is the worst case scenario is Texas is 2-3 heading into the home game against Florida on October 17th if Aguilar had been playing. But I think that changes things significantly. Longhorns will probably start the season with at least 3 wins heading into Red River. If you obviously don't want to lose that Ohio State game, but at home, I have confidence in Texas, and of course, we'll preview that as the offseason goes on. But that was, you know, your other 3 road games are at Missouri, at LSU, which will be very brutal because that's the third to last game of the regular season. LSU will have their feet wet, and then at A&M. That Tennessee game was up there as being a very difficult road game as well, and you don't want to get too overly confident if you're the Longhorns. You can kind of chalk it up as a win at this point because, yeah, Josh Heupel is probably going to let those 2 guys battle it out at quarterback throughout the offseason, and we just have no idea who it'll be, but we'll see what happens. I think that'll be a win for Texas, even if it comes in an ugly fashion. Yeah, this obviously changes things significantly, and the schedule got a little bit easier.
Yeah, and look, maybe George McIntyre ends up being Julian Sayin, or maybe he doesn't. And if Faison Brandon wins the job, maybe it takes him a little while to get going, a lot like it took Bryce Underwood at Michigan a long time to get going up there in the Big Ten. But regardless, this is just a massive development for Texas and their 2026 fate. So we love to see it. We love to see it. Let's take a break real quick, Zach. We're gonna do a quick ad from my buddy Dalton, and when we come back, we're going to preview a massive game for the Texas Longhorns basketball team coming up next.
This episode of the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast is brought to you by Custom Built Trailers of Mississippi. Custom Built Trailers is the largest in-stock trailer dealer in Mississippi with a variety of options to choose from flatbed goosenecks to bumper pull equipment trailers and car haulers, to enclosed trailers and basic utility trailers. We do a little bit of everything. And if we don't have exactly what you're looking for in stock, we can typically have your custom-built trailer built in 7 to 10 working days. 0% financing options are available, and we also deliver out of state. So give Custom Built Trailers of Mississippi a call at 601-722-9581 today and let us take care of your hauling needs. Custom Built Trailers of Mississippi. If we don't have it, we'll be glad to build it.
Welcome back. Thank you to Dalton Trigg for being the first sponsor of the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast. But Zach, big matchup for the Texas Longhorns basketball team coming up on Saturday. They face the Georgia Bulldogs. I believe this one is in Austin. Am I correct, or is it in Athens?
It's in Athens. Yeah.
Okay, so this one's in Athens. Texas got the best of Georgia earlier this year, if I remember correctly. And they're on a 5-game win streak, and they would love to keep this thing going, get another quality win under their belt. Georgia has been a little up and down lately, and Texas, they didn't play their best against LSU, but they were still able to get the win. Hopefully, they can kind of turn things around, be a little bit more methodical, a little bit more efficient in this game coming up, and get a win on the road in Athens.
Yeah, this would be massive for Texas. You've already kind of not 100%, but you've almost secured your spot in the NCAA tournament at this point with a 5-game winning streak. A 5-game winning streak in the SEC is going to do you a lot of favors. You're not going to see many teams putting together that kind of run and just completely miss out on the tournament. So, it's been a nice stretch for Texas, but getting a road win in Athens against a team you've already beaten would be massive. Road wins, regardless of who they come against, go a long way in the eyes of the committee. Joe Lunardi, he just released his latest bracketology update, and Texas is still a number 9 seed, which I don't disagree with. I think that's a nice spot for them, or it's not a nice spot for them because you have to face the 1 seed, but I think it is a realistic spot for them. You'd want to move up to the 7 so you can avoid that number 1 seed matchup if you are able to win the first round. So a road win could potentially bump Texas up a seed line, even though it's coming against a Georgia team that's been a little bit inconsistent. But they did just beat Kentucky in Rupp Arena this past weekend. So will Texas win by 20 and score 57 in the second half like they did against Georgia earlier this season? Absolutely not. They will not win. They will not score 57 in the second half. They probably won't win by 20, but I think they can definitely get a win once again against Georgia. You just beat Missouri on the road if you're Texas, and so for some reason it feels like this team kind of plays well on the road. They were up by like 15 against Auburn. They were neck and neck with Kentucky at Rupp Arena. They handled Missouri in the second half on the road. The only really bad road loss for the Longhorns was against Tennessee, and that was kind of the game that got them into gear, because after that they beat Alabama on the road. They came back from 14 down against Oklahoma on the road. This team has actually had a good season on the road, even against UConn in the non-conference. They were neck and neck with the Huskies in Stores. Or I believe that game was in Hartford, and they only lost by 8. If UConn hadn't hit some 2 deep triples at the end of the game there, Texas had a chance to win that one. So this team has played well on the road. It's weird. Against LSU at home, they missed 11 free throws. Texas did. But against Missouri, they missed 1 free throw at the beginning of the game and 1 free throw at the end, and made like 21 in between that, 21 straight or something like that. So something about this team potentially being on the road, I have faith that they can do well. So at Georgia on Saturday at 2 p.m. or 2:30 p.m., it would be a quality win for sure, because it's coming in Athens. I know Georgia is not Cameron Indoor Stadium, it's not Allen Fieldhouse, but it'll be a raucous environment because everyone wants to put the horns down. Everyone wants to see Texas lose. So it'll be a loud environment, I'm sure. And Texas needs to win if they want to keep their hopes alive of moving up a seed line. Even if you lose a game on the road, it's not going to all of a sudden knock Texas out of contention or put them back in the bubble necessarily. If they had lost to LSU, that certainly would have done that. But a road loss against a team that's right there on the bubble and in the mix isn't going to hurt you too much, but it can do a lot by adding to your resume. So you really want this one if you're the Longhorns.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a really big one. You get this one, you're almost guaranteed for sure to be in the tournament. It's a road game, which helps. It's against an 18-8 Georgia Bulldogs team, which would that be considered a quad 1 win, Zach?
If Georgia's top 75 in the net, which I certainly believe they are, and actually road games I believe are like top 50 net wins or something like that. So if you're a top 50 net team, or if you're 18-8 and you're in the bubble picture, you're certainly top 50 in the net. I don't have it pulled up right now, but that would certainly be a quad 1 win. Missouri was a quad 1 win, and they're kind of right in the same area as Georgia is when it comes to resume and all that stuff. So yeah, this would be another quad win. I believe it would be Texas's 6th quad 1 win. You're not going to be left out of the tournament with that many quad 1 wins.
Yeah, and as it stands right now, Georgia actually has a 58% chance to win this game, according to the ESPN Analytics matchup predictor. I do not have the betting odds in front of me. I guess those aren't released until game day in college basketball. But tip-off is at 2:30 tomorrow, February 21st. It is being broadcast. Where is it? Where's the broadcast? I don't see the broadcast.
It says SEC Network.
Oh, SEC Network. There we go. So it's being broadcast on SEC Network. Zach, before we get out of here, give us a couple of Georgia players to keep an eye out on for if you're a Longhorns fan that they really need to lock up or throw into, just kind of be on the guard for, because this is a really talented offense.
For sure. And quickly, Georgia is 39 in the net, and a quad 1 win. I got it mixed up. Quad 1 win is a road win over anyone that's 1 through 75 in the net. So yes, this would by far be a quad 1 win. Some players to look out for. It's all about Georgia's backcourt. That's where it starts, but I do think their bigs are very talented as well. Sorrell, their center, he had some nice plays against Texas in Austin last month. He's a really big guy. I was impressed by him. 9.7 points, 5.6 rebounds. I'm going to attempt to pronounce his first name, but Sorrell is his last name. He's a force down low. 2.5 blocks per game. I believe Georgia actually leads the SEC in blocks per game. So it all starts with him down low. Jeremiah Wilkinson, I don't believe he played in their last game, or he played against Kentucky, but I don't think he played the game before that. He was out with injury, so it's worth monitoring his health, but he did play last game against Kentucky, so he should be good to go. He's very talented lefty. He can shoot the ball. Against Texas, he had 17 points, but he was kind of held in check in that second half. He was missing a lot of shots badly, I remember, but I was impressed with him in that first half when Georgia was neck and neck with the Longhorns. So you got to watch out for him. He's scored 30 points twice already this season. He had 32 in an overtime loss to Ole Miss. He can really fill it up. So definitely watch out for him. But Blue Kane, he's very dangerous. He didn't have the best game against Texas and Austin. I mean, frankly, not much of the team did for Georgia because the Longhorns really ran away with that one in the second half. He only had 5 points against Texas, 2 turnovers. But he has 20 points. That game kind of allowed him to bounce back because he's had 20 points the past 2 games, and he's scored in double figures in 6 of the last 7 games since that loss. So Blue Kane, he's one to watch. He's very quick. He's very adept at making decisions with the ball. He can shoot. He can drive. He doesn't seem like he'd be a guy that can do all these things. He looks like he's still a freshman in high school when you look at him, but he's very talented, and so you got to watch out for him. It starts with the backcourt for Georgia, but I'm interested to see how the Bulldogs will be able to defend. I think that's where they're a little bit weaker, and this Texas offense, as we've seen, it may not seem like it when you watch them, but they're extremely efficient. Number 5 in the country according to KenPom, and so I think the game will be won and lost depending on how Georgia is able to defend the Longhorns. But at the same time, Texas is very weak on defense as well. Number 100 on overall defense in KenPom. So this could be a high-scoring game, and that may favor the Longhorns, but it'll come down to free throw shooting, defense, rebounding, and I think Texas has the edge in 2 out of 3 of those categories at the least. So got to watch out for that. But yeah, those are the players that I'm going to be watching if I'm a Texas fan.
Love it. So again, tip off 2:30 p.m. on SEC Network. The Bulldogs are favored according to the ESPN matchup predictor. But Texas is 1-0 against Georgia this year. We'll see if they can pull out the brooms and get a sweep and get their 6th win in a row. I don't know when the last time Texas had 6 wins in conference play in a row was. We'll have to do some research and go back and see that. But it's probably been a long time because I know they hadn't had 5 in a while. So that'll be something interesting to watch. But thank you so much for tuning into this edition of the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and rate our podcast and comment below to let us know your thoughts. It really helps us out in the algorithm on YouTube and social and all those different things. But most importantly, be sure to tell somebody you love them, and we will see you next